It's Karnak again with another Star Wars Armada Explained. Today we're going to look at specifically the quad laser turrets upgrade for the offensive retrofit slot. How can you tell if this card equips to the offensive retrofit? You look at the bottom left hand corner of the card, you will see the offensive retrofit upgrade icon. This card costs 5 points and it reads quad laser turrets while defending at distance 1. If the attacker is a squadron, you have counter 1. So very straightforward on this card. If a squadron is at distance 1 of you and shooting you, you can counter back and hit them. And counter 1 specifically is 1 blue die. So this card does have one clarification, which reads, a ship with this card equipped rolls 1 blue die when performing a counterattack. It does not use its anti-squadron armament. When a ship with this card equipped performs a counterattack, the ship's owner chooses which hull zone the attack is performed from. If you watch my Admiral Ackbar video, you know I've touched on this already. I'll make sure I'm touching on it again specifically in this video. An interesting thing to know about with the quad laser turrets is interactions with so many other cards, But just to demonstrate how it works, so a squadron flies up in distance 1 of you, it shoots you, and then you get to shoot back, rolling 1 blue die. In this case, I rolled 1 damage back. So I don't know. I have a raider here. The raider. Oh no, the raider can take this card. So yes, the raider can take the quad laser turrets card. So in this case, if a squadron flew up and shot him, the raider would be able to shoot him back. And any other cards. So if you do have this quad laser turrets card equipped to any other ship that's able to equip it, the die is it's treated like an attack. It can be re-rolled. Obviously, if your target is obstructed, you wouldn't be able to counter back. Because you wouldn't be able to form an initial die pool to then roll the die. So targets like Sienna or Sienna Reed, she's obstructed automatically. You can't counter back at her. Any target shooting you through obstruction, like if they're sitting in the middle of a station or an asteroid field, anything that has an obstruction effect, you wouldn't be able to counter back at them either. So anything that can reroll the die, you can reroll with. Upgrade cards like Toll and Far. Maybe you're flying SSD that's got Annihilator. It can reroll Point Defense Reroute if you roll the critical. So a few other interactions. Ruthless Strategists does combo with this card. Again, this is treated as an attack. So, for example, if you wanted to use external racks on it, you definitely can discard external racks on there. If you're flying a VSD and you have the Dominator title, again, this is considered attacking at close to medium range. If you wanted to spend shields to add blue die into this, you absolutely can. Another interesting combination, if you do that, you could use like leading shots, for example. Again, you spend 1 blue die to reroll a number of die in your attack pool. That works. Again, veteran gunners, it's used while attacking. It's exhaustible ability, so if you haven't used it and you have it, you could use it for that attack. What's a really interesting combination for VSDs is the Warlord title. So Warlord allows you to turn any die to a face of an accuracy icon, or anything that has the face of an accuracy icon, you can turn to a face with a hit icon. So, for example, if Warlord had thrown a critical, if you've got something equipped like H9 turbolasers, you could turn that into an accuracy, and then you could Warlord that into a hit. So Warlord essentially always guarantees 1 flak damage, because that card you can be utilized each time while attacking. So for on 1 die. So that's a cool combination there. Obviously, you've got Agents Callus or General Draven that can add their die as applicable. And there is an interesting interaction specifically that can only happen with quad laser turrets, Agent Callus, and something like Ordnance Experts. So Agent Callus is if you're attacking a unique squadron, you can add 1 die of any color to attack pool. Draven is if you're attacking a squadron with counter or intel. Essentially, if you were able to add a black die back into this counterattack, and for example, this was rolled with a hit crit, you could theoretically spend the hit crit die, because Fletchettes is, while attacking a squadron, you may spend 1 black die for crit icon to toggle its activation slider to the activated side. This does not, because the squadron activates the very first thing, so like you can't spend this to then unactivate a squadron and then it would be unactivated. Not that you would want to do that anyway. You wouldn't want to give them a free activation, but you can't. There's no interaction there essentially. If you add a black die, you can't trigger flechettes to then stop that squadron from anything else or unactivate the squadron. That's not. That's specifically in the FAQ. You can't do that. So again, just want to make sure I'm touching on these card interactions. If you wanted to use, for example, Intel Officer, maybe you're targeting a unique squadron, you want to target their scatter so they won't use it. There is a very unique situation if you do have a Star Destroyer, for example, who's got the quad laser turrets equipped. You've equipped Captainita, maybe you got rid of your contain, you got the evade token, and if you wanted to use turbolaser reroute circuits, for example, you technically could utilize that card. If you have Agent Callus, then instead of adding a black die, you add a red die. I mean, this is like, for example, in the Super Star Destroyer, because you'd need multiple officer slots for this, but you theoretically could pull that all off. Not that you would really want to try to focus on that. But again, to get back to what the basics of the quad laser turret is, again, it's defending at distance 1 of the attacker. If it's a squadron, you have counter 1. So again, if they're attacking outside of distance 1, like for example, Major Reimer can cause squadrons to attack at close range, which is not distance 1. Another thing that's been uniquely called out is for Admiral Screed. So quad laser turrets is considered that anytime that you're attacked by a squadron, it's considered a ship's is uniquely activating each and every time. And where can we find that precedence? If you look at Admiral Screed, it says this card's effect can resolve during any ship or squadron activation. Well, that's interesting that it says squadron activation, because obviously you can't use Screed's effect with a squadron. But what it means is that if a squadron is attacking one of your ships and your ship is equipped with quad laser turrets, it's responding by having a mini activation where it's attacking back. And if you did have a combination again with Callus, adding in a black die, theoretically you could spend that a die to change it to a hit crit. So like maybe your blue die misses and your black die misses, you could cancel the blue die to change the black die to a hit crit. Because every time the ship is attacked by an enemy squadron, again, it's a mini activation. And again, with this card, in terms of the errata about you can choose any hull arc that you want to attack from. So if a squadron, for example, flies up to the front arc and he's shooting you, and maybe he has obstruction to where you can't see him out the front, excuse me, you can choose a different hull arc. If you want to, you could choose the rear hull arc to shoot at him. You could choose the left or the right hull arcs to shoot at him. Because again, you draw a line of sight through your own arcs when making attacks. Because again, this card specifically specifies that when defending at distance 1, if the attacker squadron, you have counter 1. So if they're distance 1 of you, it already says you can counter 1. You don't have to worry about arc lines, because they don't have to be an arc, because you automatically get the counter. In this case, again, you draw a line of sight to the target, and you can attack through your own hull arcs, meaning that you could choose a different line of sight point from whence to commence that attack from. And maybe that line of sight is unobstructed, and you can hit a squadron from there. Another reason for that specification is with Ackbar, because again, Ackbar says you can only attack from your left or your right hull zones. So what's that interaction then compared to then if somebody flies up to the front? Could you counter out the front? Well, again, they've cleared that up, and if you watch my Admiral Ackbar video, I'll go more in depth. But essentially, as I just explained, you can choose a different hull arc from which that counter can originate from. So the card itself, very simple, very straightforward, but again, I want to make sure I was covering like other card interactions, other things that can happen. Of course, if you feel like anything is in error or if I got anything wrong, please be sure to mention in a comment below and let me know about it. Otherwise, thanks for watching.